Thank you for joining us for this sermon podcast from United Church on the Green, located in New Haven, Connecticut. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are invited and welcome. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to learn more about our open and affirming ministry at United Church on the Green, please visit our website at unitednewhaven.org. Thank you.
As with the hymns, the reading is also not what is in your bulletin this morning. Instead of Mark 5:21-43, this morning I will be reading from 1 Samuel chapter 17. I'll be reading verses 1a, 4 through 11, 17 through 23, and 32 through 49. So it's a long one, so I'll do my best. I just got this last night, so if I mess up a few words, forgive me. Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle in Soka, a town in Judah. And there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was over 9 feet tall. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. The weight of the coat was 125 pounds. He had bronze plate armor on his legs and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed about 15 pounds. A soldier walked before him carrying his shield. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why have you come here lined up for battle? I am a Philistine, and you are servants of Saul. Choose one of your men to fight me. If he wins and kills me, we will be your slaves. But if I win and kill him, you will be our slaves. Here and now I challenge the Israelite army. I dare you to pick someone to fight me." When Saul and his men heard this, they were terrified. Then Jesse said to his youngest son, David, "Take this food to the commanding officer in the camp. Find out how your brothers are doing, and bring back something to show that you saw them, and that they are well. For King Saul, your brothers, and all the other Israelites are in the Elah Valley fighting the Philistines." David rose early the next morning, left someone else to watch over the sheep, took the food, and went as Jesse had commanded him. He arrived at the camp just as the Israelites were going forth to the battle line, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines took positions for battle, army against army. David left the food in charge of the officers in charge of supplies, ran to the ranks, and went and greeted his brothers. As he talked with them, Goliath came forward and challenged the Israelites as he had done before. And David heard him. David said to Saul, "Your Majesty, no one should be afraid of this Philistine. I will go and fight him." "No," answered Saul, "how could you fight him? You're just a boy, and he has been a soldier all his life." "Your Majesty," David said, "I take care of my father's sheep. Anytime a lion or bear carries off a lamb, I follow it, attack it, and I rescue the lamb. And if the lion or bear turns on me, I grab it by the throat and beat it to death. I have killed lions and bears, and I will do the same to this heathen Philistine who has defied the army of the living God. The Lord has saved me from lions and bears. He will save me from this Philistine." "All right," Saul answered. "Go, and may the Lord be with you." He gave his own armor to David for him to wear, a bronze helmet, which he put on David's head, and a coat of armor. David strapped Saul's sword over the armor and tried to walk, but he couldn't, because he wasn't used to wearing them. "I can't fight with all this," he said to Saul. "I'm not used to it." So David took it all off. Then he took his shepherd's stick, picked up 5 smooth stones from the stream, putting them in his bag. With his sling ready, he went out to meet Goliath. When the Philistine looked and saw David, he sneered in contempt at him, for David was only a youth, ruddy and handsome in appearance. The Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with a stick?" And the Philistine cursed David by the name of his gods. Goliath yelled at David, "Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and to the wild animals of the field to eat." But David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This very day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head, and I will give the dead bodies of the Philistine army this very day to the birds of the air and to the wild animals of the earth to eat, so that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone here will see that the Lord does not need swords or spears to save his people. The Lord is victorious in battle, and he will put all of you in our power." Goliath started walking toward David again. David ran quickly to the battle line to meet the Philistine. David put his hand in his bag, took out 1 single stone, which he slung at Goliath. It struck the Philistine on his forehead and broke his skull, and Goliath fell face down on the ground. Hear the word of the Lord. The Lord is still speaking. May our hearts be open to listen, learn.
Wow. Will you pray with me? Dear God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. Amen. So you just heard Catherine read David and Goliath. Many of you remember this from your childhood. Am I right? How many of you remember this story? What is it about the story that you just heard that was somehow significant to you? Could you share that with me now? Yes, Angela.
The fact that Goliath was so much bigger and scarier and ends up face down.
Exactly. Goliath was so much bigger and scarier, and yet he certainly was the one who fell down. What else? Al.
I never realized how confident David was going into this.
How confident David was going into this, yes. Anybody else? Yes, David.
Don't mess with David.
Don't mess with David, right. Exactly. Yes, Jim.
At the risk of getting political.
You already know where I'm going with this.
Need I say more? Okay.
I'll have you say more later. Yes, anybody else? Did you have something? Anybody else? Well, why do you think this story spoke to me so specially today? And I want to say to you, people, where are you? Where are you? I had another sermon prepared for today, and you know it always goes with the bulletin, which is why I had to change everything. But I really felt very called because of the events of what has happened in our country this week, that I had to speak to you about this today. So I'm asking you, people, where are you today? Where are you? How many of you were at a rally yesterday to support our families to stay together? Angela? Anybody knew about it or wanted to be at it? I'm wondering if you can see why this story speaks to me this week. Do you too think the world needs to be changed?
Yes.
Do you know, I'm heart heavy and crying with the mothers who had their children taken from them. I'm crying and I'm very sad. And I'm also very scared. I feel as the people did in the book of Samuel, where they learned that Goliath and wondered what was to become of them and of their country. The David and Goliath story has implications for us today. I truly believe that. 40 days. 40 days. 40 days the Philistine Goliath of God, a mighty warrior over 6 feet tall, holding a huge spear, dressed in rich armor and heavy sword. The Philistines stood on the mountain, and on the one side and on the other side were the Israelites, with a valley in between. Goliath came forward and took his stand. Morning and evening he stood in front of the battle line. 40 days. 40 days. A metaphor for a time of trial and a time of unrest. Think of the 40 days in the wilderness, or the 40 days that Noah waited. Think of Jesus' 40 days of temptation. It means difficult times, testing times. 40 days, a time of trial. Are we in another 40 days of interminable anxiety? You know, Goliath challenged one of the servants of Saul to fight him, demanding that if one of Saul's killed him, the people would become their servants. But if Goliath wins, the Israelites will serve them. And he asked for a man to come forward. And as Al said, David was the youngest son, was confident, he was the shepherd. And as he said to Saul, I have protected my sheep from a lion and from a bear. And I know how to protect myself. I do not want armor or a helmet or a coat of mail. Instead, he went just as himself, didn't he? Confident, humble, loving and caring, and he went just as himself. He took his staff and 5 smooth stones and his slingshot and said, I will come to the Philistines with the name of God. The Lord saves not with sword and spear, but with God's loving hand. And with 1 stone in his slingshot, he hit Goliath in the forehead. He fell on his face to the ground. We see a story of the mighty and of the youth. One boasted of his strength and power. The other was called by Goliath a dog. The one who rose to the challenge with faith in his God. He knew he had to make a difference in this world, feeling that God would give him strength and courage. So where are you people? What are we to do? And what are our 5 stones that we have in our bag? So for me, I see quite a few commonalities here. I see the 2 horses with a valley in between. I see the mighty and I see the weak. I see the scared and I also see it wrapped in humbleness. I see the youth of Parkland people, and for the hope that we have for those who are millennials and younger who might be able to rise up and have one of their stones and have a chance. I see the power of Goliath, and I see the fear of those people of Saul. People, where are you in this battle?